Hello, hello, my lovelies. I would like to welcome you to this episode of Coach Caris podcast, Itchy Bitchy and Guess. Hi, hi, I'm Caris. I'm going to speak about confidence today and how to build some and what I want you to not confuse it with. I know, very exciting. I've just done a little mini series of podcasts for my On Fire clients, which is my group coaching. But obviously, I'm going to share them with everybody else as well because why wouldn't I? Why would I not give you chat for free? Of course I would. The key to building confidence. Very exciting. This is a short one. So this week I have spoken about low mood. That was a long podcast, by the way. It was 30 odd minutes. That's probably actually not that long, but it's quite long in my world. And I've spoken about anxiety. So in both of these podcasts, I've told you why we have it, and hopefully I've given you some helpful tips as to what we can do to fight low mood and to fight anxiety, and why it's super important not to label ourselves and not to put ourselves in a wee box, because then we start to believe those things about ourselves, and then we act accordingly, which is not always a good thing. So, confidence. We want you to build confidence. Of course we do. We want you to believe in yourself. We want you to be full of, I was going to say self-belief there. That's pretty much the same thing. But what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to confuse confidence with comfortable. They are not the same. Absolutely not the same. What I want you to do is, if you are feeling a little bit unconfident, is that a word? Right. If you're not feeling very confident at the moment, could be because you're perimenopause, could be because you're in midlife, and our confidence takes a dip. And that can be because of our fluctuating hormones. It can just be because of the situation that we're in at the moment, like work-wise or life-wise. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. But I want you to think back to when you were younger and when you were at school or whatever. So if you were at school and you had your group of pals and life was pretty awesome, right, you would have felt a bit confident. But then you go back, when you finish school, you maybe go to university. So you've maybe went from being like, I'm not saying you were top dog at school, but do you know, you've went from being quite high up in the hierarchy. You're maybe in fifth year or sixth year. You're one of the cool ones. I was never a cool person at school, by the way, but within your group, all right, you've got your pals and all that. You feel pretty safe and you feel pretty secure. And then you all go your separate ways and you end up going to uni yourself in a different city, country even, maybe. You're pretty much back down to the bottom of the hierarchy. You don't know the layout of the uni. You don't really know what your classes are. You don't know any of your lecturers yet, and you've not got any pals yet. All right, and chances are that's going to come, but also chances are is that knocks our confidence a wee bit. But a couple of weeks in, a couple of months in, we're totally nailing the timetable. We've met all our lecturers. We've picked out our favourites. We've got some pals. We've been socialising. You've been out partying, etc., etc. And life again is back to feeling pretty good. So you'll feel more confidence. You'll go all through uni. It's totally cool. You then finish uni. You qualify. You go and get a job. So you've went from being in your last year at uni, absolutely nailing it. You've got 4 or 5 years under your belt. You're feeling totally confident, swaggering about the campus like a peacock because you're fully confident in what you're going to achieve, who your pals are, etc., etc. Then you go and you qualify, and then you go and get a job. So you're back at the bottom of the hierarchy again. So you're starting work. You don't really know what you're doing. In theory, you know what you're doing, but you don't really know how your workplace works. You don't know the tea break times. You don't know how the day's going to pan out. You're not sure. You don't know who your boss is yet, or you've met your boss, but you don't really know them. You don't know how your work colleagues think. You don't know what their plan is, etc., etc. So you're at the bottom of the hierarchy again. So your confidence takes a wee dip again until you build that up. You get yourself into situations. You're maybe at the stage that you're taking meetings, that you've now got staff, and then you're working your way back up this wee hierarchy, right? And I'm not speaking about hierarchies as in you're always going to like you're a lesser person if you're at the bottom of the hierarchy than you're at the top of the hierarchy. That's not what I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about your ability to feel that you can carry out the tasks that you have been given, which again increases confidence. So it's not the same as feeling comfortable, but all of those feelings, like your lack of confidence, and then you were confident, your lack of confidence, and then you were confident, is all basically to do with you didn't know the situation that you were in. You didn't understand how it worked. You were fairly new to it. You didn't really understand the people that you were interacting with. So that is obviously going to affect your confidence. And that's pretty much life. But back then, you would never have not done that, and you would never have not put yourself in those situations, right? You would have finished school, you would never have not went to university because you were scared. But even if you decided not to go to university and you'd went straight into the working world, you were still putting yourself in unknown situations. So your confidence was always going to like peak and trough. Yeah? Am I making sense? I hope I'm making sense. This also happens as well in other situations other than just work. So if you take time off your work to have kids, right, and then you have your first kid, and then your confidence takes a wee dump because you're in a completely different environment and you're in a completely different situation again. Like you start doubting yourself, oh my God, will I be a good parent? Will I be a good mum? What if I drop my baby on its head? What if I don't change its nappy on time? Etc. Do you know what I mean? So it's the fear of the unknown that can stunt our confidence, but we'll never get our confidence back if we don't practice the unknown. This takes me on to build confidence, you have to go where you have none. So to build your confidence, you have to put yourself in situations that you will have no confidence in yourself. So this is about new experiences, and I spoke about this in the anxiety podcast as well. It's pretty much about fear, is what it comes down to. And having a fear of the unknown is perfectly acceptable and it's perfectly normal. But the problems arise when that fear of the unknown stops us doing things. That is when the problems arise. All right. So being confident is not the same as being comfortable. You can absolutely be uncomfortable. You can totally put yourself into an uncomfortable position and nobody would know that you're not confident. So you can blag confidence. Yeah. One of the biggest misconceptions about becoming self-confident is that it means living fearlessly. That, I would say, is a pretty massive statement. It's pretty true, 100%, but it's also a pretty massive statement. I will give you an example. I've been self-employed for a very long time now, for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, in two different positions. Well, the position that I do just now, coach, online coach, ladies at lift coach, CrossFit coach, and previous to that I had a cleaning company. Now, when I gave up my full-time employed secure job to go and run a cleaning company and been self-employed, I'd never ran a cleaning company before, I'd never been self-employed before. A lot of people around me, close friends, had an actual meltdown. I kid you not, an actual meltdown, because they thought I was throwing away the security and the safety of my employment, which obviously I was. But I still did it anyway. When I built that cleaning company up over 12 years and then sold it, those said people had another meltdown. I was all right, by the way, but they were having meltdowns left, right, and centre because they thought that I was fearless, pretty much, right? And I'm not fearless. I am far from fearless. But I have learned over the years, and I spoke about this in my anxiety podcast as well, I have learned over the years to gauge what's the worst that could happen and then whether to take that risk. Now, a lot of these people in my life, I don't think they think that now. Well, maybe they do, I don't know. A lot of those people in my life thought, definitely on those occasions and probably on more occasions, that I was being an absolute bell end with my life. that everything was going to end. I was going to have no money. I was going to get kicked out of my house. I wasn't going to be able to pay my mortgage. And I was going to end up going back and getting a job. Now, if I completely overthink that, I'm sure there's an insult in there somewhere that they didn't think that I was capable of being a success. However, I'm going to let that slide. What their problem actually was, and this has taken a lot of research and a lot of reading and a lot of figuring out and a lot of me being actually finding myself being comfortable with who I am, what they were actually scared of was their own fears. They wanted to chuck their job, or to go and be self-employed, or to go and retrain, and they couldn't do it. They were scared. So they automatically assumed that I would have the same fears and I would have the same failures. And it's bollocks, all right? So don't think for 1 minute that just because somebody appears confident that they're fearless. We all have fears, 100%. We've all got different fears. We've all got the same fears. We all have fears. But managing and weighing up the risks while having a plan, B, C, D, E, F, G and H, will give you a wee bit more security and a wee bit more confidence in taking that leap. I'm not sitting here telling you to go and jack your jobs, by the way, but I am sitting here telling you that if you are in a situation that you are unhappy with, you will never get more confident until you take steps to change that situation. Yeah? The key to building confidence is quite the opposite. It means that we are willing to let fear be present as we do the things that matter to us. Absolutely 100%. When we establish some self-confidence in something, I'm reading out a book, by the way. When we establish some self-confidence in something, it feels good. We want to stay there and hold on to it. But if we only go where we feel confident, then confidence never expands beyond that. So you'll only feel confident in that situation that you have earned that confidence. So, long story short, the way to build confidence is you need to put yourself into situations that you do not feel confident in. Like, and the benchmark that I use for my clients, will you die? No. Will anybody die? No. So why wouldn't you do it? Yeah. If we only do the things that we know that we can do well, fear of the new and unknown tends to grow. Do you know, I actually see this all the time in CrossFit, not necessarily in my Ladies That Lift classes, just in CrossFit in general. No matter what CrossFit gym you go into, there'll always be people that are new, which is fucking amazing, by the way, that have actually had the balls to walk in the door, because there is a massive misconception about CrossFit that you need to be a certain level of athlete or a certain level of fitness to be able to do CrossFit, whereas you don't. You actually just need to get your arse through the door. And the amount of people that don't do CrossFit, but I know would absolutely enjoy it, is quite high. Yeah. So the only way that confidence can grow is when you're willing to be without it. And it's that willingness that's the problem. That is what's stopping you from being confident, because you're scared. And being scared is fine, and having a fear of the unknown is absolutely fine. But if that fear overtakes your ability to put yourself into a situation for fear of embarrassment or not knowing what you're doing, then that's when you stop living and all you're doing is only surviving. We need to step into fear, and we need to step into the unknown. It's only having the courage to step into the fear and to sit with that fear, and only having the courage to step into the unknown, that will bring you confidence. So I'll give you an example for perimenopause midlife women. If you are sitting on the sofa at night because you have refused invitations to every single social situation in the last year, how are you actually going to get out of that situation? Because sitting on the sofa and reading about it, or sitting on the sofa and listening to me talking about it, which is awesome, by the way, but not actually putting yourself in those social situations, you're never going to get confident, and you're never going to get fearless. All you're going to do is let your world get more insular and more insular. You're going to lose even more perspective, and you're going to be very lonely, which is not good. So another couple of things. Trying to build self-confidence, right? We're always trying to, we should always be trying to build self-confidence. It's something that can peak and trough throughout your life, and it's something that we always need to work on. You will never get confidence, and that's you. Exactly what I was speaking about yesterday. I recorded the podcast yesterday. Exactly what I was speaking about in the anxiety. Just because you have a period of your life that you are anxious does not mean that you are an anxious person. It doesn't mean you need to disregard the other 40 years. Just because you have a period of confidence in your life doesn't necessarily mean that you're a confident person. These traits, feelings, whatever you want to call them, they will ebb and flow throughout your life. The problem arises when we stop them ebbing and flowing because we just pull back and pull back and pull back and pull back from each situation. So in the process of building self-confidence, you have to build self-acceptance. So working on who you are at the moment and learning to like or love that person that you are at the moment will absolutely help with the confidence. And also, to be able to have self-acceptance, you have to have self-compassion. So you have to understand that you are not perfect and be okay with that. None of us are perfect. And as I've said previously as well, good people can do bad things. You can absolutely do a bad thing. You can be nasty to someone. You can not push yourself to your full potential. But if you guilt yourself over all of them, that's not showing yourself self-compassion. That's not understanding that you've maybe had a bad situation, but you don't need to repeat that situation. So self-acceptance and self-compassion, whilst learning the value of fear and vulnerability. It's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to be fearful. Of course it is. But working through them and figuring out why, fact-checking yourself, so checking the facts as to why you feel vulnerable and why you feel fear, will help you understand yourself, which will help you give self-compassion to yourself and self-acceptance. And the more you can work on them, the more confident you will be. It is a very fine balancing act, by the way, and don't think for 1 minute that if you listen to this podcast and do one set of journaling and write down one list that you're going to be like this super confident person, because you're not. It's going to depend constantly over the course of your life what situations you are in, how willing you are to make yourself feel uncomfortable so that you can build your confidence in all these different situations. Yeah. Leaps of faith. That's exactly what we want to do. We want to, this is some things that you could write down to be fair, but you need to give yourself recognition, that you can improve with effort. So I've mentioned this before as well. It goes back to learning to drive. First time you get in a car, you'll bunny hop it, you'll stall it, you'll hit the curb, you'll run a roundabout, you'll run a red light, all right? But you're not going to give up because you want to learn to drive. So, yeah. If you want to be a social person, but you don't class yourself as a social person, the only way you're going to get to be that social person is to put yourself into social situations so that you can improve with effort. So it's the same with anything at all. You have to have a willingness to tolerate the discomfort of being vulnerable for a while. So short-term pain for long-term gain. If you're not willing to tolerate short-term pain for long-term gain, then again, you're stuck and you're going to get yourself into the situation that you're not actually living your life. You need to believe that you have your own back. You are your own wingman. You will be okay. The commitment to yourself that you will always have your own back and do the best by yourself, whether you succeed or fail. Failure's nothing. You'll never win if you don't fail. Never. There's a lot of people that are hung up on failure. Like, why? You don't have to be perfect. Of course you don't. And again, to do this, you have to embrace self-compassion. You have to practice being your own coach. Be your own wingman. Believe that you can do it. Absolutely. So, if you want more confidence, you don't have to live in fear. Absolutely not. They're not like polar opposites. But you do have to develop a wee pattern. Maybe that would be a daily pattern. Maybe daily would be too much. Maybe it would be a weekly pattern of getting yourselves into situations that make you feel uncomfortable. I'm talking about sensible situations here, right? And then realising that you can actually get back out of that situation or out the other side of that situation and nothing bad happened. Yeah? Feel the fear and do it anyway. Confidence, my lovelies. It's like a lot of things, it takes effort, but please do not sit back and hope that your confidence will return or that your confidence will come, because it won't. You have to work on it. You have to write things down. You have to have goals that make you feel uncomfortable. And then you need to get yourself into situations that you have a fear of. Good luck, everybody. Give us a shout if you need any help. Bye.